Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, Crispin Cruz. Boy, oh boy, do I have an exciting one for you today. I've got Joe Mason on with us today. Thanks, Joe, for being on. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great show. So glad those that are watching and listening today, thank you so much for being in attendance. So the Pipe Podcast, I'll just do a quick review here. We talk about sales process, sales initiatives, sales prospecting, and sales experiences. And my friend, Joe Mason, is going to talk a little bit about Alleyoop and what they're doing in the marketplace, which is pretty exciting stuff. So, Joe, I'm going to, before we get started, let's just tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit of background on Alleyoop and, what part of the world you run.
Yeah, for sure. And excited to be on the show today. When you asked me to be on, it's had it penned on my calendar, ready to go. So I'm pumped. But yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm one of the growth directors here at Alleyoop. Been in sales and business development really for probably the past 6 or 7 years at this point. Started my career in marketing, was part of a little startup for a bit, moved over into sales, and then really just fell in love at that point. Really found my home here at Alleyoop doing business development, lead generation, and our goal is really helping businesses find and execute the right go-to-market strategy. So working with everything from small startups to large enterprises. It's a lot of fun. We get to see a lot of different businesses. But for me personally, so I reside here in Charlotte, North Carolina with my 2 kids, my wife, and yeah, big sports guy. So
that's really good. That's so good. Thank you for that. I appreciate that intro. And so let's talk about that business development piece. All right. And you said, you were working for another company and then you came aboard with Alleyoop and then you started to, this big time title, growth director. I love it. Tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about your journey and what you've been doing kind of at Alleyoop to impact, businesses large and small.
Yeah, for sure. So my journey, I really feel like kind of like what I was describing, it's kind of led me to this point. So like I mentioned, spent a lot of time in marketing. I was actually working in sports marketing. So I got exposed to a lot of iconic brands and really got my start in my professional career after college. After that, I really always had the itch to maybe get into sales a little bit. You always have those friends that say, oh, you'd be really good at sales. Why don't you give it a shot? And made the jump, got into sales, and that first sales job was probably the traditional sales job that most people think about, right? I had a pocket full of business cards, a cell phone, my car keys, and maybe a straw of coffee. Right. I was owning territory here in Charlotte, and the learnings that came out of cold calling, knocking on doors, dropping off business cards, making phone blocks, coming in and dialing those business cards that I'd collected throughout the week. I feel like that's really what teed me up to where I'm at here at Alleyoop. A lot of that outbound growth, it's hand-to-hand combat. And what's unique about Alleyoop and really what we get to do day in and day out is take someone's value proposition and think about what's the best way to put that in front of the market and generate those sales conversations. And there's really no better way to understand that market response and really start conversations than doing it cold. You learn so much about your brand, about your product, what's the right way to get in front of those people. So we're in a very unique position here at Alleyoop, and it's definitely a lot of fun ever since.
Now, wait a second. Now, you're talking about cold calling, prospecting, outbound organic growth, right? And so now I've been reading articles, Joe, about, and it says cold calling is dead. Like, none of this stuff works anymore. That's the old, like I own every one of these gray hairs, right? That's the old way of doing it. So tell me about that. Like, what are your thoughts about cold calling, prospecting, outbound, organic, outreach? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, maybe I'll start with a little bit of a joke and being a little cheeky here, I guess. Like, if you think about
perfect, I love it.
If you think about all the different channels that you can use from an outreach perspective, I mean, the common things that may come to mind are LinkedIn, email, maybe social media, depending on the industry you're going after. And then there's the heaviest brick on your desk, and that's the phone, right? Really, if you look at all those different channels, what channel do you have the opportunity to get on live with your prospect, pattern disrupt their day, deliver your value proposition, handle objections, generate interest, and then book a meeting. It's phone. Now, I'm not going to say that, all the other channels are dead or that we shouldn't use them. That's not the hot take that I'm kind of here to give. But what I will say is the phone is king, and it's something that, we like to say the old way is almost the new way again. When you have so much, you're getting the notifications on your phone, you're getting the emails that are coming in, you look at your inbox and it's full. And the sales guys, Crispin, you get this, you want to respond to them, right? Like being in sales, I've been the guy sending the email. So I want to be responsive. But when you get so many, it's your buyers, your decision makers, your prospects, it's share of attention. And so when you think about the phone, what better way to grab their attention and say, hey, you got to talk to me at least for 10 seconds here.
That's right. That's so right. And here's the thing. This is what most companies don't understand. And I think this aligns with a lot of what you're saying right now too, Joe, is just prospecting, cold calling, trying to drive your business in that way organically just makes you a better salesperson. Like, it makes you better. Because if you're doing all of those things on a cold call, right, and you're trying to build a high level of engagement, and you're trying to do all of these things, and and in our training program, we push DISC, and we have the foundation of DISC a lot, where we try to understand, okay, what's the behavior type of the individual that I'm talking to? So we have a whole component for that. But when you're trying to align with your prospect in that way, it's just like, wow, how are you going to then tell me, how much better are you going to handle an inbound lead or a warm lead or somebody that's in their buy cycle? Like, how is that going to condition you in a better way to handle those calls even more effectively? Right.
Well, what's interesting about that too, is if you think about where you're at, I'm going to put my business owner hat on for a second. Let's say I'm a startup and I'm just trying to figure out I've got a value proposition. I've done some founder-led sales. We've gotten some referrals or a few inbounds. That's great. You haven't gotten any learnings out of that. Now, you've gotten some. I don't want to, that's a generalized comment I'm making. But what's interesting about when you start taking that to the market, right, and you're stopping folks cold in their day, you're getting so much feedback. And so when you start doing the outbound motion, yes, the goal, we're all in sales. You want to book an appointment. You want to have a conversation. And ultimately, that lead to a sale. But the data, the analytics, the market signal that you're getting back from those conversations, to your point, Crispin, that is, that's invaluable, right? Because you think about, you're getting that market signal and you're using it to shape your value proposition. You might even use it from an R&D perspective. So there's a lot you learn by taking your product to market cold that you may not get if you're just getting some inbounds or maybe you're doing some founder-led sales there.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So let's talk about some of the innovations that you guys have gone through. You said you've been with, the company now 6-7 years. You've seen markets change. You've seen things happen. If you do the 6-7 year, that means you went through this little period called COVID also. So you saw a lot of changes in the marketplace, right? And so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the innovations that Alleyoop has come up with, or what are some of the things that they do that may be different than a lot of the other lead gen companies out there?
Yeah, I think it's, from a technology perspective, we're in a very unique position because of what we do. So being a leader in the outbound space, we have, we get exposed to a lot, right? So we can see trends in the market. We have this fun sandbox environment where if there's a new technology coming out or a new trend happening, we can kind of test it on ourselves first. So we have that unique ability to put things in the market, test it out, and then determine, hey, is this something that we're confident in, and begin using that for our clients essentially. So we do get exposed to a lot, and obviously AI is a piece of it. We can get into that maybe at a later point. I'm not sure where it fits in the picture right now or quite yet, but we definitely have our finger on the pulse of it. I'd say what's something that we've we really like, and we have a partnership with Orem. There are our dialing platform that we use. There's a parallel dialer that you can use there, and it is AI enabled, but that allows the rep to have more conversations, because at the end of the day, we don't want our reps, and no one does for that matter, right? Like, we're in sales. You want to be on the phone with prospects, not on hold, not leaving voicemails. It's important, right? It's a piece of what we do. But when you use that sort of technology, they're spending all their efforts every single day having conversations, not waiting on hold or trying to leave voicemails there. So I'd say that's been the interesting piece. And to your question specifically, when you think about the shift in COVID, everyone's in so much more of a dispersed work environment at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's harder to reach your target prospects. So, when you're going through a call tree, you're trying to reach folks, are you even getting them where they're at? And so another piece of that too is the data. Where are you getting it from? What's the quality of it? So I'd say, the improvements in technology that, we've seen and we're using, and a lot of it's, on the heels of COVID, is going to be in the data and just the dialing technology that's being used.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So here's another piece though, Joe, that I've got to ask. And, we've got a lot of, listeners and viewers that either they're entrepreneurs, they're smaller businesses, and they're looking for creative ways to grow their company. Right. And so what are you seeing in that kind of entrepreneurial landscape? Like if you can dust off your magic 8-ball and maybe ask some questions, what does that look like in your world for this year? And what would you recommend for them? If there's a couple things that you would recommend that they absolutely positively need to be doing to grow their business this year, what does that look like in your world?
Yeah, I think, and I want to say it's an adage that we have heard for several years, not just this year, in the current environment with the economy and coming off the heels of COVID, but never pull back from a sales perspective, right? You always want to be driving growth for the organization, filling that pipeline. And there's tons of different ways to do it. But I think the biggest advice is, own the conversation, right? Even if it's a challenging market, and this is the beauty of outbound, you want to be able to have those conversations with your prospects, right? You don't want to be hesitant. And I mean, Crispin, I know you've talked about this in some of your stuff. Like, don't think about what they're going to say to you. Just pick up the phone and have the conversation with them. That's you coach yourself out of making the call at that point, right? And so when you're thinking about, the economy's bad or they're probably struggling with X, Y, and Z, don't neglect that. Be self-aware when you call, because you might hone your talk track accordingly, but don't get to the point where you're not doing the activities, right? Because at the end of the day, in a tough economy, sales guys are sales guys, and gals, you want to get out there and hustle, right? You got to find the business. And so waiting for it to just walk in the door, usually isn't a good strategy. I mean, there's technology, there's things on the horizon, but my biggest recommendation is don't sit back on your haunches and wait for that business to walk in. Go out and try and find it.
That's great. That's great advice. And you're so right. Now I'm getting excited because, when I talk about the definition of sales, I really try to boil that down to this, these kind of specific 3 things, right? And I've talked about this on other podcasts as well. And I think this will align with you too, is that, first of all, the behaviors have to be correct. Okay. You have to have the right behavior. And what does that mean? I know it sounds childish a little bit, right? But you have to behave correctly. If you're you have to set up your day and you set goals for yourself and you behave correctly. You make the number of dials. You try to grow your business. And a lot of these entrepreneurs, they're working in their business and on their business simultaneously. I get that, right? But your behaviors have to be correct. And here's the good news. If you behave correctly, then your production is going to increase. And if you increase production, then your sales are going to increase.
Right.
It's literally A, B, C. Like I said, right? And I try so hard to train to that, saying, okay, let's set up and I know KPIs, those are a swear word. And a lot of the companies, we're going to set up key behavior, key process indicators. We're going to set those up right now and just make sure that those are correct and do all this. And, everybody's they sit back in their chair and they're like, oh no, you're not that guy, are you? Mm-hmm. And I'm not that guy. When we go in, we're looking at key behavioral indicators, KBIs, we change that dynamic, right? Yeah. So what metrics do we want to put in place to have the right behaviors? And then once we do that, then we know that production is going to increase and we know sales are going to increase, right? Yeah, we're doing that collectively, though. We're not doing that in a silo. We're in a vacuum, right? We're doing that collectively with those that we serve.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. And it's why, a lot of companies that, let's say they've tried outbound before, maybe they've worked with another company in the space, or maybe they went out and said, you know what, I can do this. Let me just grab someone and, get someone out of college, give them a cell phone, and we'll find some data somewhere and try some outbound. And I'm not saying that can't work, but what I'm saying is it's tough. And so a lot of companies come to us and say, hey, we went out and we spent the money on the tech. We got a resource that we thought would be able to cut it and make it happen. And it didn't. And we don't know why. And when we really roll up our sleeves and start having those conversations with those types of potential clients, they start understanding that, well, hey, I wasn't really focused on the activity, or heck, I maybe didn't even manage it at all. I just hoped that resource would be able to do it on their own. And so to your behavioral comment, yes, I mean, that's why a lot of companies find so much value in Alleyoop, is because that's our only goal. That's what we're focused on, right? I mean, that's what you're coming to us for, that we're going to hit the activities, we're going to deliver, and it's going to drive the ROI that you guys are looking for as a client. So it is very eye-opening when you start peeling back the layers to, well, what did you try? What were you actually doing? And they don't have very many answers because it's tough to do the activity.
That's exactly right. Oh my gosh, you're so right. So now let's talk about some of the frustrating things in your business, because I think I've touched on a couple of these, but so I'm going to take a big deep breath because let me just toss this scenario at you, and then you tell me how you as the growth director and Alleyoop kind of handle this, because I've had this with other clients of ours as well, right? Where you're driving leads to the organization as promised, right? And you're finding potential prospects, or you're finding prospects that are in their, what I call their buy cycle, right? They're looking for this specific product or service at this time. And more than likely, they're going to buy it from either the company that you drove the lead to or someone else in the marketplace, right?
Sure.
So I would say that's a good qualified lead. So Alleyoop's doing their job. They're humming along. They're seeing the results. But man, those companies, they can't close a door. Like they couldn't close a barn door if it was in front of them. So how do you guys handle that? Like, how does that resonate through your organization as well?
Very diplomatically, I think, is how we handle it.
I love it.
I mean, it's a big piece of it, right? Because the sales process is comprised of many components. And, when you go back to where SDR work kind of was born and where it came from, it was looking at ways to take the entire sales process, which we really look at as around 8 steps, and how can we start having specialists work on certain areas of that, right? And so on the front end, we're doing the appointment setting. That's Alleyoop's job. We're generating interest in market with your target prospects and converting that interest into a booked meeting with you. But that's where the handoff happens, right? And there is, I use the word diplomatically because it is our job to consult with that client and say, what do you want walking through your door, right? What can you close? What can you sell? Now, once we align on what that is, whether it's, you qualify them on paper based on certain criteria, or you're qualifying them over the phone, we're meeting those criteria, then it's their job to sell it. Now, we don't just look at our clients and say, hey, you're not closing your business, not our problem. We want to roll up our sleeves and understand why, because there could be things where we can do better on the front end, right? At the end of the day, we can't close the business, but how can we tee up a better opportunity? Now, being a good sales professional is looking at an opportunity that walks in the door. We get these sometimes too. Like, hey, the SDR was good that, I listened to on the phone, but I was really busy. I was in the car. I just, it sounded kind of interesting. So I wanted to take the appointment. Sure. Okay. I now have an opportunity as that growth director, that sales executive, to do something with that lead, because I've got the attention of someone that's in my target market and they're sitting in front of me. Right. So it's time to do the hard work of selling. Now, there's obviously other leads too that you book an appointment and they go, yeah, Frank and I were just talking about this. We're looking for something like this. And you're the first one that called. We just walked out of the board meeting. And so let's have the conversation. We obviously want more of those as much as we can, but that's just not the reality. So I think it's maybe in summary, finding that fine balance of how much can we do on the front end, right? To collaborate with that client to make sure we're teeing up the right opportunities and having that conversation. But also, we do have those conversations with clients where they're going, hey, I'm really just struggling to close this business. And it's not you guys, it's us. And we do have some ways we can support that. There's some more customized solutions where we can do account executives and we can actually do some full cycle selling stuff as well. And we've got a couple bigger name clients that have done that for several years. It's always a delicate topip. So that's why I said diplomat.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's great. That's a great answer. So then let's shift gears for a second. As we look at, the rest of this year, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, the economy, there's always challenges, at growing your business, and there's always other options. There's always competitors out there. What's Alleyoop doing to kind of put themselves or keep themselves, abreast of what's happening in business development, and how are they differentiating themselves from their competition?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of goes into a couple different buckets. One, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, just from a technology perspective, what we're providing to the market is a fully supported, fully enabled SDR program. So they're coming in with best-in-class data. They're coming in with best-in-class dialers, automation tools when we're running sequences from an emailing perspective. And then they're picking up those conversations as we're getting responses. So when you look at the technology side of things, we get exposed to a lot. Now we're very picky, right? Because at the end of the day, we're putting our name out there saying, hey, this is how we're running our business. And this is the technology that we're using to put the best product out there for our clients. But we do get exposed to a lot. We have companies that are startups and they say, hey, we actually are, let's say a new dialing technology, or we're a new technology when it comes to AI that can support or be a bolt-on to help your reps. We want to have, and we hear all of those conversations, right? Because we want to test them on ourselves first and then be able to say, hey, this is something that's innovative and we genuinely feel like this is going to make a difference and make our SDRs more effective in the market there.
Yep.
What I will say we don't do is just rush and hop on whatever trend is happening and go, okay, all right, AI is a huge topic right now. Let's just grab AI and do it. So we're saying that we're doing AI. Said this earlier, but I feel like the jury's still out. I think in my mind, from an AI perspective, it needs to be more of a bolt-on. It needs to help, not replace. And I think in the sales realm, it's all about creating a human connection and having an authentic conversation. So I would want and look for those tools that can help foster that, not replace it. And so I think that a lot of folks get it wrong because they say, you know what? This AI is great. It can put everything on autopilot. I can sit back and everything will just run on its own. But you're losing that human element and that human touch. And so it's almost driving folks more towards, like I was saying earlier, the old way, new way. They want to have a conversation with someone over the phone. So like, man, I've got 50 emails in my inbox that all start like an AI rhythm, right? Or wrote that. So that's one thing I'd say. On the other side, really looking and deploying, good US-based reps that are experienced. They've done this before. They've got a few years on their, under their belts, and we're not just grabbing folks off the street and saying, "Hey, we got this individual. We signed this, this great new client. Let's train him up here in a week or two and get him on the phone." Outbound is a grind. It's challenging, and you got to be someone who loves it and you're skilled at it. And that's really what we're looking for in market. Not really cutting any corners there, so we can put the best resource behind the phones, behind the email, to make sure that brand health for our clients is going to be upheld there in the market.
That's great. That is just great stuff. I love it. How much of what you talked about, what we're talking about today during this podcast, how much of what you're saying about, making that human connection and really having, what's called a conversation. And again, I always say, if you're using scripting, if you're using a tool to try to, have some level of engagement with a potential prospect, the only purpose of that tool is to get off of that, script as quickly as possible and start to have what we call, in the good old days, have a conversation with your prospect, right? And start to really understand, what their need structure might be, and to dig into, those pains, and to do all of that, right? And so, but how much of that permeates through the organization? Like the humanity of it all, the culture. Like, tell us a little bit about the culture of Alleyoop.
Yeah. And some of it's very on the outside looking in. I mean, it's in the name, right? So from an Alleyoop perspective, we really see ourselves as the ultimate assist. And when you think about an appointment, you're assisting that sales executive to really slam dunk the ball, to steal the sports analogy there. But from a culture perspective, we're doing a lot to preserve that element internal. Really, one of the biggest things that comes to mind is every week we do what's called call camp, where we're going over as an organization with all the SDRs. We're picking out a call that went really well and we're celebrating that. We're picking out a call that didn't go so well and we're diagnosing it and breaking it down. And, there are the standard objections that we're facing and we're training on, but it's understanding the premise to those, not just building a script to robotically kind of answer it, right? Because we're in a very interesting position where we represent a lot of value propositions, a lot of different products, a lot of different buyer personas we're going after. The objections typically fall within a certain area, right? Now, there's going to be nuances market to market, but they're usually things like, hey, we're using someone already, or we don't have budget for this, or whatever the case may be. Those are pretty standard. It's understanding, how do I handle that? But then how do I humanize it by coming in with, this is the value that our service offers, or hey, you're in this type of role. Like you're probably dealing with these types of pain points, aren't you? So it's building that connection, not sounding like, hey, I'm rattling off a script and I'm just trying to get you to say yes to an appointment as quickly as possible.
That's great. Understanding the objection, humanizing it, being empathetic, like all of those things. That's great. It's good stuff. All right. Hey, Joe, this is typically when we move to what I call the Sales Arbiter 7. And, and so in this process, what we do is I ask you, a series of questions. And it's really interesting because it's based on, and I don't know if you ever saw Inside the Actor's Studio. It's a really old, show, and with James Lipton, and he would close, every interview with asking a series of questions. So, and I think this is just stuff that people probably don't know about you. And I think our viewers and listeners, they get a good laugh out of a couple of these answers as well. And we've gotten a couple really productive answers because they've applied it back to, their business. So you mind participating in the Sales Arbiter Saturday as well? All right, let's do it. All right. So first, what is your favorite word, Joe? What's your favorite word?
My favorite word, maybe I'll tie this. There you go. We'll tie it right back into a sales thing here. So, confident. I would say that's my favorite word. And for a couple of different reasons. I think it's, important as, sales professionals that we remind ourselves that we're good at what we do. This is going to be hard. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Remain confident, in yourself. But, also to go in the scripting side of things a little bit, like, when you're making a connection with someone and you're having that conversation and you're really trying to show that person that, hey, I believe in my product. I believe in this service and how we can help you. I'm very confident that we can help you. And so I think that's a word that's very powerful in sales, whether you're using it when you're talking to prospects or, a good reminder over a cup of coffee that, hey, it's going to be a good day today.
That's good stuff. All right. What is your least favorite word?
I'd say no is my least favorite word. I just, maybe it's because I'm in sales. We don't want to hear no, right?
Right.
Putting it more in like maybe a business spin or a business sense. I mean, we're working with clients every single day. Like we're in an interesting position where we're a service-based business. So it's not, hey, you're going to use our software platform and then you're never going to see me again. You're going to see me for the next 60, 90 days plus. We're going to be having conversations. We're going to be working through your business. And so, from a client perspective, I think it's, finding ways to guide that client, right? Not just saying, hey, no, we can't do that. It's more around, let's think through why are you asking that? Maybe we can get to some depth here to understand. Because we might be able to do it, we might not, but it's having more of a conversation versus just a hard no or a hard yes. We want more yes.
That's right.
That's it. Yeah.
That's right. Good stuff. What's something that could make your day?
A sale, a deal in the inbox.
The true, spoken like a true sales guy.
I know, like a true sales guy.
Love it.
No, I think, something that genuinely can make my day is just having a day where I feel like I've done it the right way, whatever it is, right? Whether it's having a conversation with a potential client or to say like, hey, you know what? I don't think we're the best fit. And I'm advising them on where I think they should go or what they should do. I think that's where I would put my business hat on, just feeling like, hey, I had a good day because I added value to a lot of folks. Not to do the warm and fuzzies, but when the kids come home from school, that usually makes every day a good day. So,
yeah, sure. Of course.
My answer.
Of course. What's something that could ruin your day?
At times I can be kind of process oriented. So, and it's funny to be in sales and, we got to deal with choppy waters at times and things going a little sideways. But
sure.
I feel like when processes start to break down and being a little bit of a perfectionist saying like, oh man, I should have seen that. Like I should have had a process in place for that. So ruin's a strong word, but I do get a little, it ruffles my feathers a little bit when maybe my processes break down. But yeah.
That's great. That's great. You're singing my tune right there. I'm all about purpose. I love it. I love
from
it.
the same cloth.
That's right. That's exactly right. What sound or noise do you love?
Ocean, hands down. Love it. Love the sound of the ocean. I'm originally from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So there's just, I don't know, the good vibe that comes out of just being by the ocean, the beach. It's calming. I don't know, just the sound of the ocean. I could sleep to it every single night.
The waves crashing. That's great. What sound or noise do you hate?
What sound or noise do I hate? I'd say maybe a repetitive noise. So if there's something that's like a repetitive noise, like I work from home, and if I hear something in the house that's pinging or knocking, I got to go with it. Like I can't just sit there. Like after a minute or two, I'm saying, all right, hopefully it'll go away, but all right, what is it? I'm gonna go figure it out. So something repetitive.
That's right. Isn't there like a water torture, like where they would just drip, 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 like right here on your forehead, like that? That noise, that water. Right. What? Thank you for that. What profession would you have liked to attempt except your own or besides your own?
I'm a little bit of a closet videographer when it comes to like vacation videos or, when the whole GoPro thing came out, it was literally take my money. Like I'm on board.
I'll take signs. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've had 4 at this point. So you were are really good at phasing out into the next generation. And they, you're like, hey, I want the next thing. But I'd say, getting into videography, I'm not holding my breath that won't happen one day. I'm going to be hopefully maybe in retirement, or I do a little side hustle here or there, but, I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a fun creative outlet for me. Whenever I need to be creative and, videography.
That's been great. That's great. All right. So let's wrap up with what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Joe? They want to talk with you as the growth director at Alleyoop. What's the best way for them to contact you? Let's make sure that we've got that information out there for the listeners and viewers as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so a couple easy ways to find us. Obviously, our main website, alleyoop.io. If you're interested in having a conversation, there's plenty of opportunities there to learn about what we do and maybe how we can benefit your business. But even, lining up a conversation. Like I said earlier, like we're very interested in sitting down, having a chat, and we'll tell you if we think we can help or not. Very transparent in that regard. So definitely website. Feel free to send me an email directly. So jmason@alleyoop.io. Definitely try to respond to every single email I possibly can, and always open to a conversation. So reach out. Would love to start a chat, see if we could help the business.
That's great. Well, listen, I'm so glad that you were on today. There it is, jmason@alleyoop.io. All right. I'm so glad you were on today. And I think that this had to bring a lot of value to our listeners and viewers, because most are looking for ways to improve their business, drive more opportunities, to their front door and close more, and really, increase their revenues as well. So really good stuff, Joe. Thanks for being on today. I always close every show like this. I say, listen, keep selling and have fun doing it. Thanks so much, Joe, for being on. Appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
All right.